Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we keep going strong. Uh, Unlike other weeks, we couldn't have our meeting on Sunday, so we just moved one day. But this week as well. Which week is this, Anup?
This is the second week in February.
So it's almost week number seven, right?
Yeah, it's
Week
almost
number
the seventh
seven.
week.
Have you
Yeah.
stuck to your new resolution this long ever in your life?
Definitely last year, right? Like I was vegetarian for 6 months.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, impressive.
Yeah, but it was intended to be like my whole life, I guess. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't work out well. But anyways,
Mm-hmm. Quite good to hear. Last week we read The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. Any first impression from you on you'd want to say?
it was a really nice book. I really enjoyed the book.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like a lot of things to talk about, right? What about you?
I'm kind of worried about you with the books you're recommending. Uh, Considering there's so much existential angst. Looks like you're going through a midlife crisis, somewhat, maybe. Are you?
No, come on. I actually didn't thought that it would go into this direction. I thought like Ivan Ilyich was some sort of a famous person, and then like how lives of normal people, like got affected because of his death.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was not famous in the end, and it was yeah, it was like just about a guy who was like really well seen in the society, right? Well put in the society. And this guy who was kind of successful, you could say, and how he is actually dealing with death, right? That's what it was about. So, yeah, it was
I
interesting,
have a
I guess.
I have a complete different take about this. My
Mm-hmm.
understanding
Okay.
is something along the line of Ivan Ilyich lived I would say socially acceptable life where
Mm-hmm.
he was young, he married a beautiful girl, worked in bureaucracy, and then made efforts to rise through the ranks, went to a respectable position, made contemporaries throughout his life, but in the end, while he's in his deathbed, he's reconsidering everything that he has done, and then in some way is kind of dissatisfied and cannot really remember things throughout his life that is very memorable. There's one line where he says, the most pleasant memory was from his childhood, and I think it was kind of like an expression of a life that has just passed by itself.
No, definitely, I agree with you there. I was not saying you how I felt about what he thought during the end, right? So, no, I
Mm,
totally agree with you. Um, it explored death in depth, actually, right? Like, mm, the people around him, and I guess like it's true for even us that we are kind of not realizing that our life is mortal, right? So we
mm,
are kind of ignoring death as it is. So it's about
mm,
like we know it's gonna happen
mm,
sometime, but we usually forget this fact that it is there and that I don't know in 50, 60 years it will also catch up to us, right? So um,
Ivan Ilyich was 45.
no, no, that is there, but that's not my point, right? Like my point is that we are actually that we are actually not thinking about death, like we are actually rather busy with our own life and stuff, and then when it happens, uh, if we are at the deathbed, then we're like, oh my god, like it ended like really fast, there were so many things, I didn't do this, I didn't do that,
Mm,
I should have taken different paths, so that's what I meant actually.
mm, yeah. Yeah, there's this idea of regrets and yeah, things he didn't really do. But one thing I liked is he didn't really know what he wanted to do as well. So he just lived life and just went by. And then he just looked back and couldn't point out to a single memorable event that. maybe, for example, formed him or stuff like that. Uh, but I saw it more like a dichotomy. The story itself was kind of like a dichotomy of the person as a self individual and people around them. For example, I myself think of myself as very important, but I'm just a separate individual for somebody else's life. Like I'm a very small part of their life. And you could see that even in the funeral was not so much about Ivan Ilyich, but all the other inconveniences surrounding the whole funeral proceedings. And even during the stories, a lot of these inconveniences of life, the small uh, small uh, mundane things of life that take over instead of the whole individual itself. And everybody he's related with, Ivan Ilyich, his wife, his children, they so sporadic love towards each other, but more often they are about the mundane things in life that take over them. And one person to the other is merely a coincidence, and uh, they are not as important. So I'm not as important to me as sorry, I'm not as important to you as I'm important to myself. So I would say it was something like that, is that there is the there is the essence of Ivan Ilyich being the very important person in himself, and there is him just being either a convenience or an inconvenience to everybody else around him.
Hmm. I got some of those points. Some of those points you need to repeat again because I was in my own thoughts. um, yeah. Um, with one point, I agree. What you said, like that the people were like really mundane. I guess that's how I put it right.
Mm,
No, I definitely agree with you. This thing because I also felt they were kind of trying to trying to hide the fact that he was dying, right? So
mm,
telling him all the time, like, yeah, it's just a sickness, like this and that,
mm,
and then you'll be ill. And I think a lot of the times they actually knew that he was about to die, but they were like actively trying to make themselves not believe the fact that he is
yeah.
eventually going to die, right? So, yeah, it's yes, it is about like pretending that you don't not pretending. Pretending is the wrong word, I guess. I guess it's more about you actively trying yourself not to think about death. Like you're trying
Avoiding
your
would be
best.
better.
Exactly, avoiding. You're avoiding like the thought of that somebody is dying, and also your own mortality, right? Like in the beginning, you
Mm,
see his friends are coming to his house for his funeral and at the coffin,
mm,
and they want to leave as soon as possible because,
exactly.
like, I think one guy says I forgot his name now, but he says that that's what it's gonna be like, right? Like that I'm
Yeah.
also gonna be this old and like screaming for 3 days. That is like an unbearable thought or something like that. I think
Mm,
he was saying. He goes and to drink out with his friend, I guess.
mm,
Yeah, I think except Gerasim, the butler,
mm.
everyone was being kind of not realistic or like not sure, not saying what they truly think, right?
Yeah. For me, I thought it was not exactly that, but rather the other members of his family were keeping the hope in their heart that he will heal. They didn't want to accept the impending mortality of Ivan Ilyich, but
Mm.
Gerasim was much more accepting of the mortality, and I thought that was much more likable to Ivan Ilyich because uh, there was a sense of uncertainty from everybody else, from the doctors, from the family members. They could not accept the fact that he was dying. They were hoping that he would get sick. But Jerasim was the only one who was pragmatic enough to realize that everybody has to die, and then, and this is how you die. You don't die in a dignified way. You die like other animals die. We might think of us as superior to other animals, but we have the same fate at the end.
Mm.
And that was something that was very refreshing to Ivan Ilyich. And I think that is something of a theme. And one thing that was very interesting to me was the writer just quickly passes through how Ivan Ilyich lived his life and then
Mm.
focuses very much on his death as well, like the title suggests. But I
Mm.
thought that is also consistent with the theme that your youth passes by you very quickly, and it's only your old age that takes longer to pass. My teacher used to say, at least in Nepali, there's a saying that your youth is for 2 days, and then rest of your life is your old age, and it's probably something like that
Mm,
been
definitely.
represented through this book as well.
Mm.
That a lot of focus is given to his death
Mm.
and the days preceding to the death, even though nothing drastic happens, right? Nothing really happens since his injury to his death, other than the anguish that Ivan Ilyich feels throughout the period. And yeah,
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. About the dignified death, I am in different position though, like I feel that Ivan Ilyich was just happy that somebody is actually kind of telling that he is going to die, right? That he
mm-mm,
is not pretending that he's not, right? Because you can
mm-mm,
see like even the doctors come and they speak like really vaguely. They won't
mm-mm,
say like you have this and that many days, you will
mm-mm,
pass away, but they rather try to answer him like really indirectly, right? So
mm-mm,
I think he liked Gerasim so much because he was like, yeah, like you're gonna die soon. no, no, um, not that way, but you know what I mean. I don't think it was about dignified and stuff. I
mm-mm,
think it was just the fact that he actually is not pretending that he is not going to die.
mm-mm. Have you ever taken care of someone who's dying?
No.
No.
Mm.
Mm,
No, I have not. I've met someone who had dementia,
mm-mm,
and she was around the final stages as I met her, and 3 4 weeks, unfortunately, she passed away. Right, so
mm-mm,
that is an experience that I had, but I don't think it's the same thing as in the book.
mm-mm, mm-mm,
And
mm.
you?
Yeah, I took care of my grandfather when he was very old and very ill.
Mm,
But he had dementia as well, so he was not lucid about his experiences. He could not say how he was feeling, or he could not convey his emotions accurately. And yeah, oftentimes it was just me looking at a person who was not in sense of himself.
mm,
But even in that situation, even when he can't say it in words, a person in dementia can still scream, and he used to scream a lot, probably in
mm,
pain.
mm, mm,
And
mm,
yeah, you could kind of sense the dread in the upcoming death. And yeah, this book felt something like it. And
mm. You
when,
relived that experience?
not exact, but I I was inside the head of this narrator, and it was kind of very difficult to read because when you read it, you kind of feel what he's going through, and you can kind of understand what
Mm.
he's feeling, and it was very uncomfortable. And probably that's what all the other family members were feeling, and probably that's what Gerasim was not feeling, the discomfort of death in their doorsteps.
What do you think was the main message of this book?
I don't think there's necessarily a message. I think it's just conveying uh, the act of dying. Because a lot of books focus on different aspects of human life, right? But you don't see so many books who go into the detail of a person dying and what he feels. Probably that's because there's lack of work in that. People are not necessary. People who are about to die don't probably don't want to write. but you'd see so much focus on the living, probably on the
Mm,
romance, but not so much on the death and to this detail. And probably the writer was trying to express a certain kind of death where the person is dying of sickness. He knows he's going to die, but and he cannot avoid that. And everybody else around him is also, in a sense, aware of that, but they don't want to accept that. So, yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a message in this story.
you think
The
so?
one takeaway that at least I get is that life is really fleeting and it just passes you by,
Mm.
and uh, yeah, things you hold don't last forever. What do you think? Did you feel there was a message in this story?
I think actually there was some. So what I thought was it was also kind of a portrayal of how a life can be, like which looks exactly perfect and
Mm-hmm,
societally acceptable, right? Like he was
mm-hmm,
really accepted in the society and was being held, at least what I read, to be a good guy, right? Like
mm-hmm,
even if you lead that life, you may regret it in the end, you know. So
mm-hmm.
do what you want, you know, like that's
Yeah.
like go if you want to go against societal norms and live your life, then do it. You know, I got that as one of the
Yep.
messages.
Just
And
one
can you
thing.
hear me, Silas?
Yeah, I can
Uh,
hear you. I can hear you. Just looks like we have some kind of network interruption.
hmm.
Uh, to give my take on this regard is that not throughout the book, Ivan Ilyich never really expresses regret for what he missed. I felt sorry, there was a brief network disconnect. Like I was saying,
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I did not come to that conclusion was because throughout the book he doesn't really expresses any regrets on what he was living, right? There was nothing like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I would have done that. So uh, I mean, and there's one, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So our drug addict would probably think, ah, maybe I should have lived a uplifting life, and probably somebody who has lived an uh, uplifting life, or a good, dignified life would wish I would have done something rebellious. So it's a kind of sense that in life you probably never be able to find true satisfaction. Like Buddha said,
Okay.
life is suffering, and you would suffer regardless.
I don't know, like, wasn't he saying in the end that his fond memories were only in the childhood? You know, so for me,
Yeah,
that was a big indication that he was regretting a lot of steps that he took afterwards, right? After the childhood.
yeah, but isn't your most fondest memories from when you were a child?
No, actually not.
Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, there were like some times, I guess, like where I was happy, but then again, I didn't have the freedoms, right? So other people
Mm-hmm.
used to control me, you know, like I couldn't play with my toys all the day. They would take it away, for example, just for an example, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and definitely there are a lot of responsibilities, I feel, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still young and I can do what I want. I have the freedom to do what I want,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's
Mm-hmm.
nobody controlling me in that sense. I mean, definitely
Mm-hmm.
there are some rules and regulations which I'm bounded to, but I don't know if I would prefer my childhood days over the days that I'm having right now, to be honest.
I personally really enjoyed the childhood, and some of my fondest memories are when I was still a child. At
Uh,
least playing outside with friends, hanging out with family, doing stuff together. I feel it's the more a case of novelty than having fond memories per se. That there was a lot of novelty to experience when you were a child, but
mm.
still the
Well,
novelty is
that
always
is
fun.
there. Definitely, that is there. This curiosity, I think, like that part has
Yeah.
gone, right? But Besides the curiosity, I think there's not that much that I actually miss, you know.
Mm,
Um, what I think is also the case is that sometimes we think of the days back and we only see the good parts, right? We
mm,
don't
mm.
see the bad parts, I guess. Um, but yeah, there are also equally bad parts during the childhood as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I don't know. What was the second message? The second message was exactly like that was the first message, what I
Mm,
thought, and the second message was like you told, like it was about death, right? So
mm,
I felt that Tolstoy was also kind of saying, yeah, like it is there, right? Like it's not
mm,
something that you can like, just ignore and like just day to day, like just live your life,
mm,
you are leaving, but you're actually not leaving. You know what I mean?
mm,
So there's
mm,
this messages, right? There's quotes, right? So I actually believe
yeah,
he was also trying to portray that, I guess.
yeah. But this was a very serious book. I'm not going to lie. I came out feeling really thoughtful about this, and it's not that I think a lot about death. I think a lot about leaving things behind, and I always it's one of the things that keeps coming to my head. But
Mm,
this book, the writer has written in such clear terms the sensation and the feelings of it, and oftentimes I always think about the consequence of death, and not so much the
mm,
process of time. And this is something that I'm sure, definitely overlook. I
definitely.
don't think there's anybody who walks the earth would think, oh, what it will look like when I'm going to die. Probably they will think
Mm,
of
mm.
the consequence of my death. And it was really, it was a really interesting read. And
What is what do you actually think about the last part, like where he starts dying or where he dies? I found the last page of that book super interesting, to be honest. Where he actually describes death. And
yeah,
where the soul lives its body, I guess. For me that was kind of not so sad. And I was like, oh, okay, he's finally free. I had that kind of feeling.
yeah, 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 yeah. It said kind of like he didn't feel the pain anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in a sense, makes sense.
I think like regarding that, I mean there are a lot of books and a lot of philosophs, I guess, like who can argue it better than me. But there are there was my grandma. She had like obesity problem,
Mm-hmm,
and also pressure and also blood level was high, right? And during the last months and of her life, she could not move her body.
mm-hmm,
Right, she was like in the bed all the time,
mm-hmm,
and she could not even speak. And based on that, what I heard, like she often cried. She couldn't talk to anyone. She would kind of sometimes show some facial emotions,
mm-hmm,
but she actually couldn't express anything, right? And she cried more and more, it seems, because she felt nobody understood her, right? And as she passed away, I feel a lot of the people were feeling sad, but at the
mm-hmm,
same time that she is kind of free now, what I mean? Free
mm-hmm,
of pain.
mm-hmm,
So this is a lot of the times uh, being seen as something really scary, really like uncertain, right? But
mm-hmm.
it's on the same time also seen as something that frees you, right?
Mm. Yeah, I feel that's how a lot of people interpret it. I
Mm,
think it's more of a coping mechanism rather than something realistic. But yeah,
mm,
I subscribe to the line of thought that uh, once you die, it's going to be like a deep sleep you never wake up from.
mm,
So you can interpret it as relaxing or non-relaxing. But yeah, it's probably something like that. And uh, So often, uh, yeah, you don't go to an afterlife. We just stop existing. It was like before you were born.
Mm.
But it's a very, very, uh, yeah, somber. The mood is really somber. So, is there anything else you want to add? Because
No, that's
from
it.
my point of view, this is all the book is about. It's something you have to read. We can talk about death. We can talk about the philosophies around it,
Yeah.
uh, accepting death and so on. But I don't think any of that does justice to the book. I wouldn't say it was a great piece of literature marvel, right? The sentences were simple, the ideas were simple, but I think it was just the presentation of it and the detail the writer went to is what made it a bit more, yeah, serious, a really serious book.
Mm.
Uh, Maybe I would like to ask you one question is, uh, if you could choose your death, then how would you choose you would die?
Mm. That's a difficult question, man. I don't think I can answer it right now. I need to think about it.
Mm.
Hmm.
I
How would you
remember,
have,
I
have you
remember,
have you had any thoughts?
I remember the one that Tyrion says,
Yeah,
if you
I knew that you were going to
only,
say that.
only if you love wine, yeah,
Uh,
something like that. Mm. But for me, it'd probably be something like, uh, with family around me, and
hmm,
then, uh, in a comfortable way, not necessarily with a lot of pain, but with enough people around me to kind of sympathize with me.
hmm,
At old age, after I've accomplished everything and have seen the world change.
hmm. I don't know, man. It's a difficult question.
Uh,
For what I want is, I guess, that it shouldn't prolong that long. That it
mm,
shouldn't prolong for 3 days or weeks or something. It should be,
mm,
it should happen in an instant, like pop, right? That's no, that's what I would wish, but then again,
mm, mm, I agree. So you wanted to recommend the book for the next week as well?
exactly. Then you can
Which
recommend the two books afterwards. The book that I want to recommend is called White Knight from Fyodor Dostoevsky.
NIGST? Okay, NIGST.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, White Knights.
No.
Hmm. Turns out this novel became a social media sensation in 2024 December. Interesting.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Neither did I. Okay. Okay then. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this one. So
Hmm.
rated quite high in Noor Books. Uh, yeah. Then we would read Fyodor Dostoevsky. Yet another
After after
existential.
torturing her for so long, I thought maybe you want some romance books. So it seems a romance book.
Is this a romantic book?
I guess I don't know.
I hope this is. But no worries. Next time I would recommend something uh, much more light-hearted, hopefully,
Okay.
or something more to my liking, like Haruki Murakami. Maybe I would recommend Norwegian Wood.
Okay.
It's one of my, I wouldn't say my favorite book, but one of the books that I really enjoyed reading of Murakami. I read it like 10 years ago, so I don't remember much of it, and it would be really nice to read it again. And probably something more lighthearted. uh, Thinking of death. The other book that you recommended was about a guy who's Yeah, going. What was the Notes from Underground about? The guy was really alone and
Hmm.
didn't follow the social decorum,
Uh, he was
and
a socially awkward guy, I guess, right?
yeah,
Was
yeah,
kind of trying to fit in, but then would come in his way himself.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he would get in his way himself. That's the phrase that I was searching for.
yeah, yeah. So, is there a reason why you're recommending only Russian writers?
um, yeah, because I want to complete all the collection of Dostoevsky, I guess.
Uh, okay. Mm,
um, no, but besides that, no, no particular reason.
mm. So, thank you very much, Anup, yet again. The discussion today was probably a bit, uh, I would say, incoherent in a sense, but the thing is, the topic is something like that. Maybe we have to revisit this book in 10 years or something, and then we will get better idea of it. But as of right now, the ideas were very, very deep and uh, I don't want to call that sinister, but at least for people who are us who are still, I would say, relatively young, it's a sinister idea. And yeah, to have to live with it, to have to understand it is something quite interesting. So thank you very much. And yeah,
No
the
problem.
next week we're going to come with White Knights, Fyodor Dostoevsky.